I'm just going to come right out and say it. If you've been waiting for a real winter, kind of winter people tell stories about years later, this might finally be the one. As I look at the data rolling in, the long-range ensembles, the analog years, the teleconnection patterns, 1 year keeps screaming back at me. 2013, and I know that's a bold comparison. Because the winter of 2013 was one of the most relentless snowmakers the United States has seen in the last 20 years. But I'm telling you now, what I'm seeing for late November through February has the same fingerprints. We're talking about above normal snowfall across a huge portion of the country. Cold enough air masses pushing south to lock it in. And storms that don't just come and go, they recharge, reload, and fire right back again. The shift begins within days. I'm not talking about something arriving way down the line. We're looking at winter chill entering the Midwest and Great Lakes region in less than a week, and that's the first domino. Once that cold air establishes itself, everything changes. Late November is when most years are still shaking off the last mild air, but not this year. This time it looks like the snow machine might crank early, and once it starts, it may not shut down until March. Yes, March. Let's talk regions, because everyone wants to know how much snow are we actually talking about. I'll give you numbers, but keep something in mind. These projections are already above normal. These aren't worst-case scenarios. These are my middle ground expectations, and they're already impressive. The Pacific Northwest? I see an early surge of moisture riding a strong jet into Washington and Oregon. Seattle might pick up 8 to 12 inches this winter, and I don't mean isolated storms. I mean spread out through repeated systems. Portland, 5 to 10 inches is absolutely possible, which is double a normal year for them. But the real story is in the Cascades. If you're planning to ski at Mount Baker, Crystal Mountain, Timberline, I wouldn't be surprised to see 600 plus inches of snow. Maybe even approaching 700 if the cold holds deep into February, by the way. If you'd like specific weather forecasts for your region or city, please leave them in the comments. I'll answer them individually as time allows. Also, if you like the video and subscribe to my channel, you'd be very grateful. Now let's move on. California is a wild card, like always, but the Sierra Nevada has that same 2013 signature I keep seeing on the models. We're talking 350 to 450 inches in the high. Sierra enough to keep mountain passes shut down a few times this year. Now let me take you straight into the Rockies. Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, if you live anywhere near elevation. This might be one of those winters you measure by how many times the snowblower needs new oil. Denver itself could push 60 inches, which would be above normal but not absurd, but the foothills and Summit County ski regions could easily flirt with 300 inches. Salt Lake. I'm expecting 80 to 100 inches, especially if we get a mid-January atmospheric river tied into cold air. Now let's move east. This is where everything really intensifies. The northern plains and upper Midwest might be ground zero for early season snow. From late November through early December, the same Great Lakes pipeline that dumped snow in 2013 is poised to reactivate. Fargo, Bismarck, Minneapolis, Duluth, these cities may be in line for 60 to 75 inches. That's a full foot above average for some of them. If even one major lake effect event happens while the lakes stay unfrozen, add another 10 inches to that. I am watching late November closely. I wouldn't be shocked if Minneapolis saw measurable snow before Thanksgiving. And speaking of lake effect, brace yourself. Buffalo. Every time I look at the pattern, it practically screams open water, Arctic air, and a stalled west wind. That is the classic recipe. If you lived through 2013, or if you remember the lake effect walls of snow in 2014, you know what that looks like. I'm calling for 90 to 120 inches this winter for Buffalo. If one major band sets up over the South Towns again, someone might top 150 inches. Cleveland. 75 to 90 inches is realistic, especially if we rack up snow in December before Lake Erie freezes over. Detroit, Chicago, Milwaukee, all 35 to 55 inches. Depending on storm track, and let me say this clearly, this winter is absolutely loaded with storm energy for the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes. If you live in Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan this winter might feel like the calendar forgot to flip back to spring. Then we slide into the Northeast. And I will be very honest. This looks like an East Coast battleground winter. If the cold presses far enough south, we are talking about multiple nor'easters instead of sloppy rainstorms. Boston is on my watch list. I'm calling 45 to 60 inches, maybe more if we get to blockbuster storms. New York City? I see 20 to 30 inches, but if we get one well-timed coastal low with locked-in cold air, that total could double in one weekend. Philadelphia? 12 to 18 inches, but again, one big storm could break that number in 2 days. Washington, D.C. looks a little warmer overall, but still 8 to 15 inches, which would be above average for them. I absolutely believe at least one major East Coast snowstorm will hit between mid-January and mid-February. Let's talk South and Southeast, because people there always ask, are we getting anything? And actually, yes. I think there will be at least one southern snow event. Nashville could grab 6 to 10 inches over the whole winter. Louisville, possibly 10 to 14. Even Atlanta might see flurries or a glaze of ice once or twice. Not a repeat of 2014, but enough to get people talking. The real wild card is the Texas Panhandle and Oklahoma. Amarillo and Tulsa might see 20 inches or more if the storm track lines up just right. Now here's the part everyone always asks me. How cold is it actually going to get? I'll put it this way. If you have a good winter coat, you're going to use it. We're setting up a pattern that repeatedly drives Arctic air into the heart of the country, especially in December and January. I won't be surprised if we see wind chills in the 20s across the Dakotas and Minnesota more than once. Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland. I absolutely expect sub-zero nights, maybe multiple stretches of them. Even down in Texas, I see at least one blast of cold that drops night temperatures into the teens, and all of this starts soon. By the end of November, that colder air is already on the move. If you live in the Midwest or Great Lakes, you will feel winter arrive before Thanksgiving. Maybe not the biggest snowfall yet, but the kind of cold that makes you realize something major is changing. Then it builds. December is when the snow machine starts to rev. January, that's when things might turn epic. And February, the pattern hangs on longer than normal. I don't think the snow shuts off until March, and in some places, not until mid-March. So when people ask me, is this winter going to be like 2013? I don't say yes lightly. But based on what I'm seeing, the cold air delivery, the storm track alignment, the precipitation anomalies, the ocean patterns, this is the closest match we've had in over a decade. I'm not saying every single storm will hit. I'm not saying every city will get buried. But if you love winter, if you love snowstorms, this might be the one you look back on and say, yeah, I remember that one. That was the winter when it never stopped snowing. And I'll say one last thing. Don't wait until January to prepare. The cold is coming this month. Winter isn't waiting for the calendar this year. All right. If you'd like specific weather forecasts for your region or city, leave your region or city in the comments. I'll answer them individually as I have time. Commenting is completely free. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.